Rosemary.
This is the ordinary meeting of Blue Mountain City Council held on 26th of May 2026 in the Council Chambers in Katoomba. Good evening, councillors, staff and members of the public. Welcome to this ordinary meeting of Blue Mountain City Council. Members of the public are not allowed to speak at council meetings as per the New South Wales Code of Meeting Practice. However, there is an opportunity for the public to speak at a public forum held prior to the council meeting if they register in advance. And tonight nobody has registered in advance, so there were no speakers ahead of this meeting. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. As all statements made at this meeting will be recorded, your image and voice may be recognised and other people may be aware that you have attended the meeting. Your continued attendance at the meeting after this statement is made is taken as your consent to your voice being recorded. The recording will be available on Council's website for 12 months after the upload date, and this meeting must not be recorded by any other party other than the Council. Council is not responsible for the statements of any individuals made during this meeting, and any defamatory statements or any statements which include personal or confidential information are the sole responsibility of the individual making them. The Council's Code of Meeting Practice sets standards of conduct for a meeting. If any person in attendance acts in a disorderly manner or makes unacceptable comments, then the meeting may be interrupted by the Mayor or by me, the Chief Executive of the Council, and we will take appropriate action. And finally, should the chambers need to be vacated for any reason, I would appreciate it if you followed the directions of our council staff. And I'd ask now staff and councillors and everyone be upstanding for the Mayor.
Good evening, councillors, staff and members of the public. The City of Blue Mountains is located within the country of the Darug and the Gundungurra peoples. Blue Mountain City Council recognises that Darug and Gundungurra traditional owners have a deep and continuous connection to their country, and that this is of great cultural significance to Aboriginal people both locally and in the region. For Darug and Gundungurra people, Nura takes in everything within the physical, cultural and spiritual landscape. Land forms, waters, air, trees, rocks, plants, animals, foods, medicines, minerals, stories and special places. It includes cultural practice, kinship, knowledge, songs, stories and art, as well as spiritual beings and people, past, present and future. Blue Mountain City Council pays respects to the elders, past and present, while recognising the strength, capacity and resilience of past and present Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the Blue Mountains region. Please be seated. We won't need a public forum tonight, so to go to apologies, I have apologies from Councillor Van Opdorp, from Councillor Redshaw and from Councillor Fisher. It's moved Councillor Fell, seconded Councillor Miles. All those in favour, we accept the apologies. Against, declare it carried unanimously. Ordinary meeting held 28 April 2026. Minutes are before you. It's moved Councillor Buckham, seconded Councillor West, that the minutes be accepted as a true record. All those in favour. Against, declare it carried unanimously, and I'll sign accordingly. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations? There being no declarations, I'll move to mayoral minutes, mayoral matters of urgency, mayoral matter of urgency number 1. Standing in my name. It's moved me, it's seconded the Deputy Mayor, and it's on the screen. It will be, but to save time, the recommendations in the mayoral matter of urgency are that Council notes that the Winter Magic Festival is to be held on 20 June. The Council notes Winter Magic Festival is managed by community members. That the Council notes that Council supported the Winter Magic Festival Committee, the Winter Magic Committee, by seeking funding for the event through the State Government's Open Streets program. The Council notes that no ratepayer funds have been provided to the management of the Winter Magic Festival. That the Council notes the Winter Magic Festival Committee has sought, should be, not have sought, but anyway, has sought sponsorship from commercial organisations. In particular, should be small I, sponsorship is being provided by Airbnb, and this is a commercial arrangement between Airbnb and the community group. The Council notes that multiple resolutions have been made by this Council on short-term rental organisations like Airbnb, to the extent that they have an impact, should put the words, to the extent that they have an impact, to the extent that they have an impact on rental affordability and the long-term rental market, and that the Council sends should be an S there, a letter under the signature of the Mayor to the community group requesting they consider the appropriateness of Airbnb as a sponsor. Councillors, you know, those of you who've been around for a while, that I had a bit of a dust-up with Airbnb in the pages of The Guardian some time ago when we were seeking the power as local government to regulate short-stay accommodation. And Byron Bay actually did get those powers, but they did a deal to accept some high-rise in return for getting the power to regulate, something that we weren't keen on. But and by the way, something was never offered to us. Airbnb, short stay and similar organisations do impact the rental market. Between last year when we looked at this, between Wentworth Falls and Blackheath alone, you had 800 Airbnbs. Now just think about if a third of those went back to the long-term rental market, what an impact, what a positive impact that would have on the long-term rental market and on housing affordability in the Blue Mountains, housing access in the Blue Mountains. Imagine if half went back. Imagine if 3/4 went back. What an amazing difference that would make to housing in the Blue Mountains. You would have, you know, an influx of 500 plus homes onto the long-term rental market just between Wentworth Falls and Blackheath, let alone the rest of the mountains, where there are Airbnb as well, or short stay or stays or whatever you want to call them. Businesses, and I won't name them, have come to me and said that they can't open every day, cafe businesses anymore, because the people they used to get to work as casuals, often young renters, are not here anymore. So I know one cafe in the Blue Mountains that isn't opening every day now because it can't get the staff. Because that social cohort has actually left the mountains because properties have been withdrawn from the long-term rental market. Now, there's a whole lot of other things that have been said in social media about Airbnb, and I don't know that they're true or not, so I won't repeat them here. But what I do know is that my concern about the Airbnb business model is that it does impact the long-term rental market in places like the Blue Mountains. And I have a fundamental view that it's not regulated well, and I have a fundamental view that power to regulate should sit with local government. Given that we have issues around a contracting long-term rental market in the Blue Mountains, I don't think it's appropriate, and given, by the way, that this council has taken such a strong stand on the likes of Airbnb, I don't think it's appropriate that we sit quietly by when a major Blue Mountains festival uses them, I think wrongly, as a major sponsor. Our comms lead and our executive business manager will, I think, confirm this, but I think by now I have formally withdrawn from speaking at Winter Magic Festival. I was invited to speak at the festival. I was invited, I think, to play a role in the opening of the festival, and I won't be doing that now because I can't. As a principle, I can't lend my name and therefore your names to a festival, even one as important as this, that openly has in its branding an organisation whose business model is not a positive, unregulated for this community. Now, I'm not going to get up here and take an extreme view and say they should be banned. My call is for regulation. That's it, proper regulation, proper balanced regulation that sees some homes returning to the long-term rental market while others may remain short stay. But there has to be a disincentive for everybody to basically go onto the short-term rental market. Now, the position we've taken about regulation is a principled one, and on that basis, I think this resolution tonight is appropriate, and I also think it's appropriate that on your behalf I don't attend and play a role in the opening ceremony, which I'm sad about. Councillors, before I sit down, there is an urgency motion that will come up tonight on the same subject. It's consistent with this resolution, so you can happily pass both. Is there a second to wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to support this motion, and particularly to explain to people that Airbnb is has been running and is continuing to run a very significant and concerted campaign to basically try and propel and promote its agenda to keep short-term rentals pretty much free and have a low level of regulation. There is some level of regulation, but pretty much free of regulation. And the reason I'm saying this is it's over 2 years since the state government, which holds the power for regulations, actually put out a discussion paper on short-term rentals, and this was when the Mayor was very active in the media, and submissions were called from the 15th of February 2024 to the 14th of March. Now, anybody who does a quick Google search will find that this review is still under consideration. And I say that because it's very clear that Airbnb over the last 2 years has continued to run a significant campaign. It is a shame that Winter Magic has been unaware of this campaign, and maybe I would encourage them to do that, some of their due diligence to actually understand where this is up to. And I would hope, maybe I will move a notice of motion at some point, that we actually write to our state member asking for an update on the review as well, because it is over 2 years and, if my calculation is right, 2 years and 2 months since submissions closed. So they're doing a lot of consideration, the state government. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? There's one matter before us. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Mayoral minute number 2, standing in my name. Mayoral matter of urgency number 2, standing in my name, is seconded by the Deputy Mayor. The words will appear on the screen. I'll ask you to consider those words while I speak on this matter. The state government has placed documents on exhibition detailing 2 new development assessment pathways, a new targeted assessment pathway and a pathway for variations to development standards for complying development applications. These proposals are purported to simplify the planning system despite adding additional pathways. So, not just about simplification, it's about more ways in. More worryingly, what is proposed will result in a one-size-fits-all statewide set of standards for, get this, all low-density residential development, houses, dual occupancies and multi-dwelling housing that will override local environment plans. Okay? Our LEP will be overridden by this, and it applies to all low-density residential houses, dual occs and multi-dwelling housing. Council will be seeking an exemption, councillors, from the low-rise housing targeted assessment pathway, consistent with previous exemptions granted from the low and mid-rise code. So we have had exemptions, they have been granted. This needs to be added to that list. Now, these changes were introduced as part of the Planning System Reform Bill 2025, tabled in Parliament by the Minister for Planning on the 17th of September 2025. The Planning System Reform Bill was a subject of a mayoral matter of urgency at the 30th of September 2025 council meeting and a subsequent mayoral minute on 28 October 2025 at that council meeting. There was no consultation process on the Planning System Reform Bill. It passed through Parliament in October 25 and is now being progressively implemented. Some might say regressively implemented. Council wrote to the Minister in October 2025 under my signature, raising serious concern with these reforms. At that time, what was proposed was enabling legislation with no detail on how it would be implemented. The document currently, or the documentation I should say, currently on exhibition, while not comprehensive, provides a detail on how some of the most concerning elements of the Reform Bill, which Council raised in October 2025, so that in its October 2025 letter to the Minister, will be implemented. Targeted pathway assessment. The first of the proposals is the targeted assessment, which is a new development approval pathway that is more streamlined and than a full development assessment. Targeted assessment developments will only need to address a one-size-fits-all planning rule developed by the state government, not local planning controls. So it'll be one-size-fits-all rules set and local planning controls don't get a look in. It's not a fine-grained approach. The targeted assessment pathway also, get this, turns off and prevents the consideration of key matters under the EP and A Act specifically. I'll ask for an extension of time because this is important. Move Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor West, extension of time until I finish. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Now, Jack Ferguson and Neville Wran were responsible for the EP and A Act, and now, under this targeted assessment pathway, that's turned off, specifically turned off. The suitability of the site is not considered. Significant likely impacts of the proposal, not considered. The public interest, not considered. The discussion paper on exhibition proposes to apply this targeted assessment pathway to all low-rise housing types, the lot. So we are talking single dwelling houses, dual locks, as I said before, townhouses and villas as well. One-size-fits-all planning provisions are proposed to apply across New South Wales in every single zone where these housing types are permitted. For the Blue Mountains, and this is really important, because this is devastating, for the Blue Mountains this would mean that almost all housing will be under the control of standards set by the state government, overriding our LEP, overriding all of our fine-grained local planning rules, and preventing local communities from playing any role at all in defining standards that address the unique character or environment of settings in this area, one of only 2 cities in the whole world wholly enclosed in a World Heritage Area. Now, you'd think we were behind on our housing targets. We're not. We're ahead. So we don't actually need this. But the impact of it will be devastating. Rules applied to a new suburb of Western Sydney, a brand new suburb of Western Sydney, would be equally applied in our established residential areas that interface with the UNESCO World Heritage Area. So, new growth area, somewhere in southwest Sydney, out near the airport, same rules apply there as areas abutting, say, I don't know, pick any site in the Blue Mountains that abuts the World Heritage Area, because it would be the same ruling, same rules would apply, with no consideration for how hazards and environmentally sensitive areas would be managed. The EP&A Act switched off. Now, another pathway is complying development variations. The second proposal is to allow variations to the complying development standards. Complying development is a current approval pathway under the state government's code CEP, which was intended to apply to low impact development that is strictly compliant with development standards under a ticker box style assessment. Currently, if these standards aren't met, then a full development assessment is required. What's proposed is to allow complying development applications to vary up to 4 planning rules, including height, setbacks, and floor area, which would result in well beyond what's currently permitted in the Blue Mountains. So the ticker box just basically expands out to effectively almost everything. These proposals reduce the role of local communities in the planning system and prevent local governments from providing appropriate planning controls based on local settings and community needs. These reforms represent a new and alarming era for land use planning in the state, where community vision and local settings matter for naught, are disregarded in place of a one-size-fits-all fast-track approach to housing delivery. Now, again, you're talking in the Blue Mountains about an area that is actually ahead of its housing targets, but also one of 2 cities in the world holding enclosed in a World Heritage Area. So we're not behind, we're in front. Now, I was around when World Heritage listing was achieved, and one of the things that was said at the time by UNESCO was that we had to control hard surfaces in the mountains because we were a rare World Heritage Area that is upland from a major watercourse, being the Nepean River. This doesn't do that. And this will fundamentally change the Blue Mountains, a place that attracts 5, going on for 6 million visitors a year because of its unique character. It shames me to say that the stuff we're seeing now wasn't touched by the former coalition government, but is being well and truly embraced by this apparently Labor government. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Look, I think this is so devastating that I will support the Mayor in all of his words. And I guess what I want to say is, one, for every year that I've stood for election, a fundamental part of my platform and why the community, I've been honoured to be elected by the community, is that I will stand up for the provisions of our local environment plan. And I know that our local environment plan has been worked through not only the LEP 2015 that, I was part of, pushing it into the standard instrument, but really want to recognise the work that people did, both planners, community, and all of the people that participated in reports and made submissions. Our LEP really worked to consider the unique environment of the Blue Mountains. Water, fire risk, slope constraints, the list goes on. And I can remember when we were moving into the standard instrument, and we'd always been given a exemption, I believe, up till then, to even have to move into the standard instrument. And there were all the changes happening with planning under the former government. One of the things was that was really critical, and while we may not have agreed with those, with some of the changes, but one of the critical things was, no, we will allow communities to be involved at the strategic level in developing with councils the local environment plan. And from that flows the compliance issues, etc. I mean, planners would be able to much better say it than me. I'm not a planner. But I just feel that this is an absolute, not just a heavy hand, but a really dark hand. And we have a really sensitive environment. We've only got to think about all of the natural disasters. Now, one was fire, but the rest were water related. And what people don't realise is the amount of water that flows across our landscape that's sloped, and all of the issues that occur for people's houses and properties is extraordinary. So I thank you for bringing this forward. I thank the staff for putting in a submission, and I really hope we can get an exemption and win this, and I hope other councils will join together in this fight for our own community identities and environmental protections.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Hua.
Look, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'll rise only briefly to thank you both, councillors Greenhill and Hollywood, for having the courage to stand up and speak out against this further travesty of the evisceration of the planning reform, New South Wales planning system. I wholeheartedly concur with all of the remarks that have been made around the table. I just despair at just how far this government is willing to go to remove the rights of community participation and environmental protection that are being wreaked on the on the New South Wales planning system. And I just want to also offer my thanks to the staff for being alert and across this, and for the level of detail and thought that I know goes into these submissions, and I implore the state government to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? If not, there's one matter before us. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. A matter of urgency number 3 will appear on the screen. It's, look, really briefly, Blaxland master plan, I have got, it's not on the screen, so I'll read it out. The council expresses its interest in the conclusion of negotiations with landowners in Blaxland regarding stage 2 of the Blaxland master plan, and the council resolves to update the community in early 2027. Councillors, my patience is wearing a little thin with the landowners in Blaxland. We're starting stage 1 in June, and we took a plan to the people. It was endorsed by the people in a vote of the community. I know our staff are valiantly working to get agreement. The master plan can't happen without the use of our land, and the landowners need to either get on board with the community's vision or we won't do it. And I'm, you know, I had hoped we'd be breaking ground in 2026. If our staff had their way, we would be doing that, but it's dragging on. And these landlords need to either, you know, commit or forget it. But what we're not going to have in Blaxland is a substandard outcome. We're going to have the vision we put to the people, not some junky outcome. So this is not going to sit there forever. If they don't want to do it, then we won't do it. They have to do it our way. It's our land they need. Our community endorsed this vision. 70+% of our community voted for it. Their views matter. So patience is wearing thin is the message. Does the seconder wish to speak? No. Yeah, it was second Deputy Mayor. Anyone else wish to speak? One matter before us, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. All right, mayoral minutes. Mayoral minute number 1, standing in my name. It's moved me, and it's seconded by Councillor Jamieson. It relates to the final submissions, final submission for Narrowneck. I won't make a long speech to this because otherwise we'll be here all night, but I want the council to endorse the enclosed submission by way of formal objection to the state significant development proposal at Narrowneck Road, Katoomba, which also includes concurrent rezoning and the proposed amendment to the Blue Mountains Local Environment Plan. I want us to note that the submission, our submission that was lodged with the Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure by the 30 April 26 due date, having been authorised by the Chief Executive Officer and in consultation with myself. And I want us to note that the state member for the Blue Mountains has been provided with that submission, and she has in turn provided it to the Minister for Planning. And I would ask us to note also that the New South Wales Parliament, in introducing residential accommodation as a form of state significant development, did not provide objectors, including council and merit-based appeal right, before the New South Wales Land and Environment Court, thus placing a renewed obligation on the department to carefully consider the multiple and fundamental objections that have been identified by the council in its submission. There were 700 odd submissions made and 700 odd objections. The community's position on this is overwhelming. This is really a formalisation of the steps we've taken tonight. the debate has been agitated well before, so this is really a procedural resolution to back in the steps we took in between meetings. Seconder doesn't need to speak to this one, I don't think. Vote to support it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. Thank you. Mayoral minute S1, I would ask you to have a look at. This is a really interesting one. It's second to the Deputy Mayor. We need to make a submission by way of a formal objection to a proposal to modify state significant development, the Walgan Valley Emirates Resort. The proposal is a substantial increase in helicopter flights to and from the resort over the Blue Mountains local government area. Someone asked me, surely they said, would the flights be over Lithgow? No, of course not. You'd go over the Blue Mountains with your rich people because we're prettier. So this submission is required to be lodged with the department by the 19th of May to meet the submission timeframe. And it's been authorised by the Chief Executive Officer under delegation and supported by me. I just want you to note the considerable concerns that we've raised, and they're set out in paragraphs A through to F. There's no consultation with council despite the potentially significant impacts to our local government area. The proposal was incorrectly notified by the department as a temporary change to flight frequency, when the proposal actually seeks a permanent and an ongoing increase. So it's misleading the public to think it's temporary. In fact, when I posted about this on Facebook, someone actually said it's temporary. Well, it's not. Under C, the extent of the proposed changes, you got an uplift from 8 flights per week which is the previous number, which was approved 20 years ago, to 210 movements per week. So from 8 to 210. It's not as they propose substantially the same, 8 to 210. I don't think that increase is substantially the same. I think that increase is significant. And that's actually a point in respect of section 4.55 brackets 2 of the EPA Act, the one that, Neville brought in with Jack that they want to gut now. And it should be, under the Act, this should instead be subject to a new development application because it's not substantially the same. Under that section, a new application should be lodged. The application under D, you'll note, doesn't account for the known changes to flight paths from the Western Sydney International Airport. There's no account for that, which will serve to actually, and this is important, to compress helicopter overflights closer to dwellings in the mid to lower Blue Mountains. So where's the greatest noise impact from Western Sydney? The mid and lower Blue Mountains. Well, the compacting effect will be to extremely exacerbate aircraft noise in those areas. Under E, you'll see the flight paths have not been subject to appropriate acoustic impact assessment. That's just not happened. And clearly it would result in a reduction in amenity in the urban corridor of the Blue Mountains, as well as over the National Park Estate. And the nature of the flights over the renowned landscape of the Blue Mountains could reasonably constitute scenic or joy flights, in my respectful submission, that of the staff, over the World Heritage listed Blue Mountains. Clearly, you kind of get the feeling sometimes the Blue Mountains is under attack. We've got Western Sydney Airport, doesn't miss us at all. You've got Narrowneck potentially hanging there like a sort of a miserable cold sore. You've got Emirates now bunging a few helicopters over the top of us. You've got to say that it does sometimes feel like the Blue Mountains has seen less of a jewel and more of something to plunder by certain interests. So this submission is important, and I would ask for your support. Deputy Mayor wish to speak or happy for my mayoral minute to go ahead? Everyone okay with it? Put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Right. Now, I'm going to just pull out items that councillors wish to speak to. Can I ask you all to note, and can I note for the minutes, that matter of urgency number 2, standing in the name of Councillor Hua, has been withdrawn by Councillor Hua on the basis of negotiations taking place between council and the state government at the moment that are going quite well. So thank you for supporting those. Matter of urgency number 2 is withdrawn. And also item 3 has been withdrawn for further advice. So with those withdrawals, I'll turn to Labor's whip. Oh, item 7 as well. Consequently, item 7 has also been withdrawn, pending further advice. So I'll turn to Labor's whip, Councillor Fell, and ask, what is it you wish to pull out, my friend?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The items I'd like to pull out are items 9, 13 and 16.
Yes. Any now go around the table that you're content? Councillor Buckham, Councillor Fell's content, Councillor Miles, Councillor Rodrigo, Councillor West, Councillor Hollywood, Councillor Hua. Yeah, it's out automatically. Yep. Councillor Jamieson. All right, then let us go through and deal with matters in globo. So 2, 3 is out. 4, 5, 6, 7 is out. 8 will be passed because it hasn't been pulled out, be dealt with in globo. 10, 11, 12, the addendum to item 11 is included. That's an addendum moved by me. It's before you, or drafted by me with staff. So that addendum is before you. That regards the platform, Romola. Thank you. 12, so 11, 12, 14, 15 are all in globo. So I'll just go through those again. 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15. Move Councillor Fell, second Councillor Buckham. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Which brings us to item number 9. It's moved Councillor Hollywood, second to Councillor West. Councillor Hollywood has the call.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am delighted to have reached this point where we have a locality plan, not only in draft form, but actually here before us to be approved. For me, and I think for our residents and potentially for the council as a whole, this is a true milestone. It was actually 2015 when residents...
Sorry, Councillor Hollywood. Councillors, when the council is speaking, we do the courtesy, please, of not having another conversation. Thank you. Councillor Hollywood.
I'll just keep talking.
No, it's actually not okay.
No.
It's not too bad. Continue.
Okay. I don't know whether the clock stopped, but anyway, I can speed up. So 2015 was the first time that residents raised concerns with me and indeed the Mayor, and it was during the Hordern Road fires, which in fact I have had confirmed were caused by campers kicking a fire illegally lit at Lincoln's Rock over into the valley and then it blowing back up because it was the middle of winter. So 2015, 26, so 11 years, we now have a fabulous locality plan. Through that time, we've had an enormous amount of work, customer service requests, residents raising concerns. We've banned the buses, the large coaches, I should say. We closed Little Switzerland Road, not to build a car park to attract more visitors, but in fact, we closed Little Switzerland Road to stop people driving up onto the Rock, and particularly buses that were minibuses that were emptying out a whole party gear and having parties on the Rock. So we closed Little Switzerland. We formalised the car parking arrangements with the little car park. In 2021, we had a petition from residents to improve pedestrian safety. That petition led to council successfully in 2023 getting a grant to build the shared path from the highway right along Tableland Road and down to Hordern Road. And I believe that construction will start next year. There was a significant notice of motion that I wrote calling for the plan, and there was also the Mayor's Mayoral Minute. I want to note the bus strategy. Also, community members participated in that process. So it's been a long process, but we are here. We have a plan. The community has had their say. And I really appreciate what the community, particularly the local residents, but people from all over the mountains have participated and given their feedback. And I think that this plan to look at better signage, to increase walking, to allow the footpath to be constructed, and to look at over time how we might be able to have some kind of booking service at the little car park, which will remain closed until such time, is a great path forward. So I commend this report. I thank the residents. I also thank the Gazette that has run many stories on this, and I particularly thank the patience and persistence of the local residents. This is an emblematic issue. It's about social media promoting a site. It's not the only site in Australia that's facing that problem, but here it is in Wentworth Falls and in the Blue Mountains, where we've had up to 2,000 visitors in one day, and particularly at sunset. So we do live in changing times, and this means we need plans to look after the environment and to also manage safety on the site. So I commend this report to you and hope that everybody will support it. Thank you.
Second I wish to speak. Councillor West has the call.
Look, I see this locality plan as a fine example of what can be achieved when the council staff, elected councillors and the community work together to find solutions on the important issues our city faces. This plan is obviously a great first step in setting out the future of this extremely popular lookout. And I'd thank the staff for the way this has been pulled together and for their willingness to listen and taking on the challenge of managing this site. Look, I've been on council since 2021, so I really have to acknowledge the work of my colleague, Councillor Hollywood. Her advocacy around Lincoln's Rock far predates my election, and her vigilance in keeping Lincoln's Rock on the agenda has been central, I think, to all the work that's been done on this plan. And look, I really think that this shows the way we do things in the Blue Mountains. We take our responsibilities as a city wholly located within a World Heritage Area very seriously, and recognising the environmental and cultural significance of this site and the impact visitation has on the surrounding residents is really at the heart of this measured approach we've taken. And I think this is a very sensible and fair way forward, and I wholeheartedly support this plan, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hua.
Good guess, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Councillor Hollywood and Councillor West, for your speeches on this. I think you have really done a great job in covering off just what a tremendous outcome the staff working together with community have achieved, and I want to acknowledge all of the work that has gone into managing the very, very difficult impacts of tourism at this site for such a long time. But I particularly want to acknowledge just what an outstanding document the Lincoln's Rock locality plan is. I think this will serve as a case study of how these pressures can be well managed. I hope this is studied in tertiary institutions across the country and even around the world. I really do think that this is an outstanding example of how pressures can be managed in conjunction with the local community, and how that community voice can be heard to achieve what I think will be a transformational outcome for the environment, for the respective the cultural significance of this site. And I really want to acknowledge the work that's being put in by traditional owners and their consultation with the staff to arrive at this very, very desirable outcome. I do want to put cast a view forward to when we might be able to gain some kind of revenue from our site, from this site, when we have the mechanisms in place to allow limited visitation from buses and appropriately endorsed and accredited operators. I do think that is a useful would be a useful thing to work towards. The only thing that I really wish to add, saying different from what else has been said tonight, is I really do think that humans are going to do what they have to do, and when we have such, even at the much lower volumes of tourists and visitors coming onto the site, I can foresee, I quite confidently predict that we will have issues down the track with managing the dumping of human excrement and toilet paper on the site. And unfortunately, I do think that that's a nut that we need to crack. And whether we do it in the short term or whether we wait for it to become a problem and then deal with it around this table in years to come, I guess is the issue I'd like us to consider as the plan is refined and put into place. But I really do implore the staff to consider solutions around pump out, or what are known in New Zealand as vault toilets by the Department of Conservation. As someone who spent a lot of time tramping around in that country, I've used many of these facilities. I've seen them grow and evolve over decades, and the technology is really at a very advanced state. And I just don't see why we can't adopt that and plonk it in place. We don't need a sewer system to be able to manage the toileting wastes, which as I say, confidently predict will become a problem, and I would like for us to be able to foresee that and to find the funding somewhere. Like, I appreciate any sort of toileting is not a cheap form of infrastructure, and if it has to wait until grant funding becomes available, then so be it. But I really do think that the technological solutions are there. We don't have to helicopter the pump out waste out as they do, as remote backcountry huts in many places do. It's a fairly cheap, would be a fairly cheap system to operate and maintain, and I would urge that further consideration be given to manage those impacts. But in summary, I think it's a fantastic result, and I do wish to reinforce my deep and sincere gratitude to all those who have put so much work into developing such a fine set of plans. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Let's make a couple of comments from the chair before we close. I do want to acknowledge this process was started by a mayoral minute, and that mayoral minute came about because on a particular weekend, Councillor Hollywood took me up onto the rock to see with my own eyes just how extreme it had become, and that mayoral minute kicked off the process that got us here. So I want to. There have been a few out there sort of claiming credit for this process. What started it was a mayoral minute based on a visit one weekend by the two of us, Councillor Hollywood and I. The second thing I want to do is just have a moment of reality. This project is sucking a lot of money out of all the wards right now. So it has to be affordable. The council, as you all know, is facing real challenges in relation to revenue with inflation, fuel costs, thanks to the Orange One's war, and just general costs rising of the work we do. And revenue, Councillor Fell, revenue is an ongoing issue for us. So while it would be nice to build toilets down there now, we can't afford it right now. And all of the wards are subsidising this. And that's fine, they should. It's a Blue Mountains wide facility, but the extent to which we can do that is limited. So not right now, maybe in the future, particularly if grant funding is available. So there's one matter before us, I'll put it. All those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously. Just will say to councillors again, please, don't have conversations around the table while others are speaking. All right, thank you. I'm going to come to matters of urgency after I deal with the business of council. So I'll just flick to item number 16, the Précy. Sorry? Oh, beg your pardon, 13. My God. Sorry, Darren. Item number 13 first. Councillor Rodrigo, you wish to move something? Seconded, Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just rise to speak and move the recommend.
Thank you, Councillor Rodrigo. No.
I rise to move the recommendations as printed on the Wimmera to Hawkesbury Lookout shared path, the 4.5 kilometre path which will connect the Wimmera shops to Hawkesbury Heights. This has been a project which has been long awaited by the community. It's gone through various iterations over the years, but this is an important milestone tonight, the appointment of a contractor to actually commence construction. It has been, there was mentioned the excellent teamwork between various states of government. This is another example of that. Of course, BMCC staff shepherding this difficult project through multiple levels of approval and funding. A couple of rounds of funding from the federal government, state government contribution, and a contribution from BMCC to make it happen. But it's all come together tonight, and I congratulate the BMC staff on that, but also want to publicly thank Susan Templeman and Trish Doyle for their ongoing support of the project. The Hawkesbury Heights community, least to say, would probably feel itself somewhat neglected down the end of Hawkesbury Road. There's a sense that all of the resources and money go to the major population centres, but I can tell them tonight they are not forgotten. This is an important path which will connect them to the services of Wimmera and, of course, the broader footpath network which leads all the way into Springwood as well. I do believe actually that this will become an epicentre, one of the highly utilised and great walks of the Blue Mountains for dog walkers, for runners, and for cyclists as well. Of course, beginning at Wimmera Shops, it'll end at the Hawkesbury Heights Lookout. Beautiful vista there, and then the return trip will be about 9 kilometres, which is, someone who's done a bit of social running, a perfect distance for a casual run or a nice walk. So aside from actually making that important contribution to the people of Hawkesbury Heights and connecting them, people with prams, as a father who pushes a pram every other day, I acknowledge the importance of that. It will be, it's a very important asset for that community, but I also think it's an asset for the broader community who will use it extensively. And with the appointment of a civil contractor tonight, I'm really proud to say that we've reached a critical milestone and a valuable milestone in this project, and want to let the community know that it's happening. The construction will be commencing this year. BMCC has committed to me that it will be finished by the end of the year. I've told the community that, and please do not make me renege on that. So thank you to everyone involved. Congratulations to everyone involved, and we look forward to seeing the commencement of construction on that shortly. And of course, look forward to cutting the ribbon on that with the mayor and state and federal representatives. Thank you.
Second, I wish to speak. Councillor Feld, you wish to speak? No? Anyone else wish to speak? One matter before us, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. Now, I'll deal with Tracy first, and I'll come back to the matter of urgency. Item 16 is moved. Councillor Hollywood, seconded Councillor Fell. Councillor Hollywood, wish to speak to Tracy?
Thank you. And I will try and make this quick, but I didn't want to let this moment pass. I wanted to thank the Mayor and also councillors for supporting, you remember, an urgency motion that was on the seniors housing development application at Wentworth Falls Golf Course. Now, the letter from the Mayor sets out really well the concerns that we have as councillors. And I want to say we're back here again where this kind of development is not actually permitted under our LEP. It's being progressed through a provision within the state planning instrument, the New South Wales Housing CEPT, which rolled the seniors housing CEPT into it, to allow, to kind of support golf courses by allowing them to effectively sell off or lease parts of their land for seniors housing. Now, I do completely understand that, and if you'll forgive the pun, that this particular development application has been overshadowed by the proposed development at Narrowneck, and rightly so, because the Narrowneck development is really huge and scary and sets a dangerous precedent. But so does this. As you'll see in the letter, it sets out not only that it's not permitted within our LEP, it's overridden by state planning policy, but also it's mapped as flood-prone land. It's intensive development, so that issue that the Mayor spoke of the fact that we need to keep permeable surfaces. 63 independent living units is intensive development when it's 6 lots, basically, subdivision of 6 lots of land. The other thing is, from an environmental perspective, the Wentworth Falls Golf Course is the headwaters to the Jamison Creek. It's unusual that it is a golf course. Many of our headwaters are actually bushland, protected bushland, and in fact, right near the golf course, there's the Geebung Reserve, which is also protected, plus the whole area of the lake and all the amazing hanging swamps. So this is the headwaters, but the headwaters also feed down into the Wentworth Falls Lake and down through the Jamison Creek to the fantastic Wentworth Falls, and which is the home to the critically endangered dwarf mountains pine. So all of that intensive development, all of that concrete, all of that intensification of flooding may actually impact not only surrounding land, but also the habitat of the dwarf mountains pine. So I really appreciate this has been an unusual step for the governing body to make a submission. I really appreciate the Mayor's support on that, and I also really appreciate our councillors' support. We are here to stand up for protecting our environment and protecting the provisions so carefully considered under our local environment plan. So thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Hua.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to thank and acknowledge Councillor Hollywood for her remarks. But I rise to speak, and I fully support the concerns that she has so eloquently expressed. However, my concern with the Precy of correspondence is an undated letter from the Minister for Health, the Honourable Ryan Park, and to yourself, Mr. Mayor, on the PFAS New South Wales health advice on epidemiological studies and blood testing. I just wish to make a few remarks. I'm concerned that about the department, or the position of the Department of Health. It's not the first place that I've raised these concerns, and I'm sure it won't be the last. But just wish to note that in his letter, the Minister for Health told the Council that PFAS levels remain well below the National Health and Medical Research Council health-based guidance values, yet Sydney Water's own June 2024 testing found PFOS in our PFOS in our drinking water at 16.4 nanograms per litre. The NHMRC's current guidelines for PFOS is 8 nanograms per litre. That means our water was double today's guideline level. It was also more than 4 times higher than the US EPA guideline of 4 nanograms per litre. Our water supply, as we know, was contaminated for 32 years after the 1992 petrol tanker crash at Medlow Bath. Blue Mountains residents were drinking tap water at 2 to 4 times modern safety standards. Councillor John Dee has also informed me that 2 US
Councillor
epidemiologists...
You just said Councillor John Dee.
Councillors, referring to you,
Right.
John Dee.
So I did ChatGPT get that wrong.
I'd ask the Mayor to withdraw that remark.
Mayor withdraws.
John Dee has also informed me that the 2 US epidemiologists cited in this letter from the Minister, Dr. Max Aong and Dr. Sherlock Lee, have raised concerns in writing about how their meeting with New South Wales Health has been described. Both doctors have stated that they support blood testing for our community as part of an epidemiological study, in contrast to what the Minister and the Department would have us believe. In the United States, communities with similar PFAS exposure have received blood testing through health studies run by the CDC's Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. Our community has not been offered that support. I would like to formally suggest that Council could even invite Dr. Aong and Dr. Lee to address our Council at a briefing directly and explain whether they believe the Blue Mountains community should receive PFAS blood testing. They are the independent experts and Council should hear from them directly. Councillors should also be aware that multiple litigation funders have approached Stop PFAS, offering to fund a class action against Sydney Water on behalf of this community. Mr. Dee has now obtained internal government correspondence obtained through the New South Wales formal order for papers process in the Upper House, which says that which he says shows that government agencies misled this council and the community about PFAS contamination in our water supply. I ask that Council invite Mr. Dee to present that evidence directly to the Council. Our community deserves to hear it. Thank you, Mr.
We
Mayor.
won't be doing that because the decision isn't made by council. It doesn't need to convince us. It's actually a state government issue. And I know you often get confused about the relevant jurisdictions. We're actually in council, not state government. So, Mr. D, we don't make any decisions in relation to this. We don't regulate the water. So if Mr. D and the other people you mentioned want to go and convince anybody, convince the state government. You don't need to convince us. You don't need to interject either. There are a plethora of mayoral minutes putting our position very strongly on this. There's no ambiguity about it. We've stated our position, and if anything, it's stronger than anyone's. So don't need to convince us. That would just be a stunt. And so we're not doing it because we've already supported that view umpteen times through mayoral minutes that I presented this council every month for about 10 months. So that would just be a needless exercise and a grandstanding episode, which we don't need. If they want to address the state government, they should. And that's why we won't be doing as you suggest. We also don't have briefings anymore, you may not have noticed. All right, anyone else on the précis? I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. Matter of urgency number 1, Winter Magic Festival Airbnb. It's consistent with a mayoral minute. A rule it's urgent because the event is on the 20th of June. Councillor Hall.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. And thank you again for accepting this matter of urgency. I do have grave concerns at the proposed sponsorship arrangements this year. And really, for me, it's all about seeking social licence. I just think an incredibly foolish decision has been made to permit Airbnb to seek to accommodate the desire of this very disruptive operator in the housing market to seek social licence by sponsoring this community event. It's, as I say, in the motion. It's incredibly important that when seeking sponsors, that those sponsors need to be aligned with the values and the ethos of our community. And frankly, the lack of judgment that has been displayed here is really quite appalling. So this is why I choose to use the words as strong as we see before us, that I really do think that, that this decision needs to be condemned, and I ask for your support in that. Whether it's, I expect it's too late for much to change, but I really do think that those responsible for organising the festival and the broader community need to learn some lessons from this experience. I do want to acknowledge the many comments that have been made in recent days on social media that have reflected just how furious the late John Ellison, the Wizard of Katoomba, one of the founders of Winter Magic, would have been had he been here and to witness this decision. And I really do think that out of respect for him, we need to convince the well, I'm very pleased that I guess Airbnb has recognised that it's just untenable for them to have naming rights over the parade, and at least that has been withdrawn. Look, I just want to make a few remarks about the need for improved governance and transparency. I think it's really important that we all understand the incredible contribution that incorporated associations make to the social capital of our community, and it's very, very important that they are well run. Although they are subject to an enormous number of rules under the Associations and Corporations Act of New South Wales, there's actually very little mechanisms to enforce those rules when things go wrong. The Department of Fair Trading has no interest and no capacity, short of taking proceedings in the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal, which no one really has the capacity to do. There's very little that can be done to ensure that those who take on the responsibility of administering incorporated associations do so in good faith and according to the spirit and the letter of the constitutions they have, by which they are supposed to be bound. I do think it needs to be recognised that there have been significant concerns that have arisen in the community, that there have been a number of shortcomings in the level of openness and transparency in the operation of the Winter Magic Festival Association and the committee, and it's not my intention to go into any details or hash over any old coals here, but I just want to encourage the community to take a strong interest in the future of this wonderful community festival. Having been involved in it since my girls could walk, and they're now 27 and 25, it has been an absolute defining event of our community, and I do hope that it has a future as wonderful and magnificent and diverse as the one we have known in the past. But that will only happen if people step up and volunteer their time and their effort to making the festival what it really should be. It's often said that the world is shaped by those who turn up, and tonight I really want to encourage those who are as upset as I know we all are at the concern that has arisen around the shaping of the 2026 festival. It's only if those people turn up and make a commitment to making the festival even better in the future. So yeah, I do implore the community, the current committee to heed the motion that we I hope will pass tonight, and to ensure that a properly constituted AGM is held as soon as practicable, and that the membership is opened up to anyone who wants to show up either beforehand or on the night. Thank you.
Thank you. And seconded, by the way, by Councillor Rodrigo. All right, anyone else wish to speak? No one else wishes to speak? Seconder wish to speak? One matter before us, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. Now I'll get a motion. I think we've finished the business of the meeting, so I'll get a motion to close the meeting. Moved Councillor Fell, seconded Councillor Hollywood. Councillor West on adjournment.
Thank you, councillors. Look, tonight I speak not only as a councillor, but as one of the few queer people who've been elected to this council, and to my knowledge, the first non-binary person elected to Blue Mountain City Council. Now, we live in a society where LGBTQI+ Australians, in particular trans and gender diverse people, face discrimination. In recent weeks and months, we've seen harmful, hateful rhetoric circulating in the media and online, fueled in part by the words and actions of some politicians, the very people who should be protecting the rights of all Australians. The rights of trans and gender diverse people isn't some esoteric, abstract concept that's up for debate. This is people's lives. It's the life of people like me that is under the microscope. When politicians do things like preach equality with one hand and then refuse to condemn unlawful homosexual vilification and sexual harassment with the other, it sends a dangerous message that the rights and dignity of queer Australians is negotiable. I am, of course, referring to events in the New South Wales Parliament earlier this month, where after the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal found that public statements made by Mark Latham towards Alex Greenwich MP constituted unlawful homosexual vilification and sexual harassment in the workplace. So the Upper House Greens joined the coalition in voting to protect Mark Latham from condemnation. Clearly, the conduct here of the coalition is abominable, and look, those further to the right don't particularly bear thinking about, but it really is a betrayal when those who most claim to support our community choose not to do so, as the Greens in the New South Wales Parliament have done. I will not lie and say that the Labor Party's fight for equality has been perfect and that our past is beyond reproach, but I think our positive contributions speak for themselves, and I am proud that my Labor colleagues in the State Parliament condemned Mark Latham's hateful conduct towards the member for Sydney, Alex Greenwich, who is, by the way, the only gay member of the Legislative Assembly. Look, this is the time when we all must step up to condemn the behaviour of those who seek to sow division and marginalise already vulnerable communities for their own gain. I would just challenge and encourage all politicians from all parties, really just to do better and to speak out to support the LGBTQIA+ community, because frankly, there are lives at stake. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, no further on adjournment. Well said, Councillor West, well said. No further on adjournment. It's been moved and seconded that we close the meeting. My congratulations, Councillor West, for your words tonight. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Rosemary. Right.